You know who made it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to RickCast, episode 174 this evening. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Thursday, the 21st of August, 2025. Going to be a quick show tonight. I always say that. It never is. Hold on. There we go. Because we're going with Cunningham at 7:40 Central, 8:40 Eastern. So I don't usually have long Thursday shows, but it happens whether it does or it doesn't. But I appreciate you guys stopping by, however long you can. And do me a favor, leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave all that kind of stuff as we get the show going. But what are we talking about tonight? So, the biggest news of the day, in my opinion, that's right. The wrenches need to assemble. The biggest news of the day is that Trump is reviewing 55 million foreigners with U.S. visas, which is which is shocking when you actually see or think about 55 million people are in the country with visas. Not all 55 are we have to say even if half of them are expired, it's 25 million people. That's incredible. That's an incredible amount of people. Big news. The SEC moves to a 9-game conference schedule. About time. Of course, the SEC always gets, they always get nonsense and grief because they play some pretty weak out of conference schedule games traditionally. And then they play, because the argument is it used to be they played the hardest schedule, so they had to have some fluff games. Now with the Big Ten going from coast to coast, it's a little hard to make that argument, but you could if you wanted to. But we'll see. Football season starts in just a couple weeks. I think it's like 2 or 3. And actually, no, it's the end of August, right? Isn't it next week that football season starts? And then we'll lose more of the population of males because they will crawl into their hole to watch football. Not that it's a bad thing or a big deal or any of this other stuff. It just is what it is in that regard. So we're going to talk about the visas. We're going to talk about the second story, Gavin Newsom's meme game, as he is trying to establish the front runner for the presidency of these United States in the Democratic Party. It's actually kind of funny that he's doing it because it's the Democratic Party admitting that what Trump does works. Because essentially all Gavin Newsom is doing is mimicking the meme game that Trump and Vance had in the 2024 election. Does football start tonight? Let me see. When does college football? 2025. AI, find it. Saturday the 23rd. So this weekend is week 0. Which is weird. Like they have week 0 and then they have week other things. And I mean, I don't watch any of that stuff. I don't watch college football unless it's like the Notre Dame games because I have Paramount, or it's on Peacock. It's on one of those. So I watch the Notre Dame games because I'm a Notre Dame fan, Catholic and all. Yes, I understand Notre Dame is woke AF, but still, it is Our Lady, and I'm still going to continue to root for her. And of course, A&M, because I married into it. No, it looks like the first games are the 23rd, are Saturday. First game kicks off Iowa State at Kansas State, and the last game of the night is Stanford at Hawaii. So, yep. That's not your bad because they usually do like weird Thursday night kickoff games in like Japan or some weird stuff like that. So I wouldn't be. That's why I checked because it wouldn't be that far off. Aggies versus Longhorns. I know that's at the end of the season. I already know who I'm going for. I'm going for the Aggies, even though they're probably going to lose. The Aggies will win 8 games, have a potential spot in the SEC championship game, and then lose to Texas University. The tale as old as time. That's what they did on last year. They had it. If they beat the Longhorns last year, they would have played in Atlanta. But no, they lost. But we'll see what happens. I'm still going to root for the Aggies because I'm a Red Sox fan by trade. I grew up as a Red Sox fan, so I know about punishment. And I know about eternal, just no matter what, continuing to vote for any of that. I think somebody asked us this last year. I wouldn't do it because even if we don't do it, stealing is stealing. Right? It is you are I look Rick Barrett's interpretation of that, Brian, take it as you will. I won't do it because I feel like even like piracy or any of that kind of stuff, it's still a form of it's still a form of stealing. Now, if somebody who's better catechized can tell me that I'm wrong, I'll be more than happy to listen to it, but I just keep it on the safe side for myself, which is why I only watch the the college football games that are on Peacock because that I know I can watch those games and everything's fine. But I get it. I get it. It stinks that ESPN has bought all of college football and they have it under this but you have to watch the commercials. All right, so maybe that's a penance. Maybe that's a penance in that regard. But it stinks that ESPN, the worldwide leader in social justice programming, has taken all of college football and put it under its umbrella. And they did the same. They just did the same thing with the NFL. ESPN pretty much just bought out the NFL Network. So it's crazy that they have that monopoly. I'm surprised somebody hasn't hit them with the monopoly charge yet, but it is what it is in that regard. Yes, college football starts this weekend. I don't really, like I said, I am more interested in the Daytona race this Saturday evening and seeing if Chris Bushner or Boucher, can get into the playoffs if he can get a win at Daytona because right now he's on the outside of the NASCAR playoff bubble, and if he wins, then he's into the playoffs. If not, then RFK doesn't get in, and he's their best shot at getting in. That's honestly what I give a rip more about. I care more about the Daytona race and NASCAR than I do about football. Not that I don't mind watching Notre Dame games. Like I said, I don't mind watching Notre Dame games. But yes, so we'll talk about Gavin Newsom's meme game. And then we've talked about it before. We talked about it with renters, I think, earlier this week. And we're going to talk about it again because this came out from Newsweek. Americans can afford only 28% of homes on the market. Yeah, I know. Last year, the Notre Dame game was on Peacock. Oh, it's going to be on Peacock again? Nice. Oh, that's right, because A&M is going to be at Notre Dame because they were at Kyle Field last year. I don't know. I think Notre Dame's going to sweep that series. I think Notre Dame's going to beat them twice. And credit to Notre Dame for scheduling an SEC team, and credit A&M for doing that. So we'll see. We'll see if the Aggies can do it. That's going to be a big test for them. I know Josh. I love Josh Pate. I love Josh Pate. I love Pate State, and I think it's hysterical that Josh Pate is always high on the Aggies, and every year they don't do well, and he's like, "I got to explain it." I love the fact that Josh Pate isn't he's not an A&M homer, but he's always supportive of A&M when it's easy to dump on him. So I mean, Josh Pate's also the best in college football at analysis. He really is the best. I don't care what people say. I enjoy the guy. I mean, if you want to learn how to be a really good broadcaster in this field, doesn't even have to be college football, just watch him. He is personable, he knows his stuff, he's engaging. He is fantastic on every level. Yeah, I will man crush out on Josh Pate because even though we don't fill the same roles, the guy's just he's great. He's excellent at what he does. And then that's going to be it because I got news from the pew with the one and only Steve Cunningham coming up in a little over an hour. Oh, but what am I yawning for? Sorry, I'm like the Prince from Spaceballs. Prince yawning. All right, let's get into the first story of the night since I'm starting to yawn here. First of all, before we get into anything, let's add a source and thank the sponsor of today's program, the one and only tradflags.com, ladies and gentlemen. Tradflags.com, tradflags.com, your one-stop shop for any great Catholic flags, banners, magnets, mugs, bumper stickers, you name it, they have it. Tradflags.com. Month of August is about to run out. So why don't you get a head start on September at tradflags.com, where you can get the absolutely gorgeous Seven Sorrows of Mary. The Seven Sorrows of Mary flag you can get at tradflags.com. Tradflags.com. Promo code RickCast gives you 10% of your order. 10% off your order by using the promo code RickCast at tradflags.com. We thank Keith and all the great people at tradflags.com for providing amazing products for Catholics to use to evangelize, because I can't say the other words, evangelize, and display proudly, and B, for stepping up and to support this show. So big thank you to tradflags.com. Promo code RickCast for 10% off. That is tradflags.com. Thank you very much to the great folks at tradflags.com. All right, so this is our first story here. This is a follow-up to the trucker crash we talked about on Monday, I believe. And the fact that the person, the Southeast Asian that was driving the tractor trailer, didn't have a license, couldn't speak English. When he took the road test, they only recognized 2 out of the 12 signs. It was an absolute disaster to see that. So there was obviously a push from people to say, hey, can we get truckers? I know Trump put out an executive order saying all truck drivers had to speak English. Well, let's start enforcing that, and it looks like they are. From Marco Rubio, effective immediately, we are pausing all issuances of worker visas for commercial truck drivers. The increased number of foreign drivers operating large tractor-trailer trucks in the U.S. is endangering American lives and undercutting the livelihoods of American truckers. So, yes, we're going to file this under good Trump. This is a good Trump move. I'm happy to see this. It's good that American roadways should be for Americans. It's that simple. It's not nationalistic. It's not anything else. Because if you can't understand English and you can't understand the signs, you shouldn't be operating an 18-wheeler. And this goes back to the H-1B argument, the great H-1B crash out last year on Christmas between Vivek, Elon Musk, and a bunch of people like me and a bunch of other anonymous idiots on Twitter, where we all went back and forth with them when they said, we need more H-1B visas. And people like myself and others were saying, no, you don't need H-1B visas because they don't bring anything productive into the country. And of course, we've seen example after example after example after example where they have not been positively impacting the union. And so it's good to see these visas being paused. And this is actually, I should have actually used this in lieu of our first story. So I'm going to switch these up and I'll talk about this in a second. But we'll talk about the visa thing in a moment. Let me give you an update here. There was something floating around the interwebs talking about how Villanova University says an active shooter report was a cruel hoax. There was video saying active shooter at Villanova. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. It was at a church service. This is crazy and insane. Looks like it was fake. So first of all, Deo gratias, thank God that it was a fake incident. But of course, this always brings to attention the idea that gun-free zones make victims, that gun-free zones are not a safe and effective way to keep campuses safe, and that people should have the right to be armed on campuses, and 18-year-olds should have the right to have handguns, both male and female, because at the age of 18, you should have the right to defend yourself with a handgun, regardless of what anybody says. So that federal law needs to get repealed. So here we go. This is from ABC News. Villanova University said news of a possible shooter at its law school was a cruel hoax after it issued an alert warning of an active shooter on the Pennsylvania campus. Mercifully, no one was injured, and we now know that it was a cruel hoax. There was no active shooter, no injuries, no evidence of firearms present on campus. Villanova President Reverend Peter Donahue said in the statement, while that is a blessing and a relief, I know today's events have shaken the entire community. It does, and this is what happens when you do not have a campus or you have an environment that is stripped of all types of defenses. This imaginary belief that, oh, well, if we say that there are no guns on the campus, on the church, on the school, on the supermarket grounds, then nobody will bring in said firearm. When really what you've done is you have reduced the population to being fish in a barrel. And we see this time and time and time again. Colleges, high schools, elementary schools, despite the attack drones we talked about yesterday, all of these things are soft targets. And the easiest way to ratchet up the defenses of a college campus is to allow college students. I mean, you're letting them sign loans for ridiculous amounts of money, and they're adult enough to sign on the line for Freddie and Fannie, but they're not adult enough to be able to have a concealed handgun. That's the way this goes. So it's one of those things. Yeah, Peter. Providence College is the same way. My where I got my teaching certification. I was a huge Providence College fan growing up in the state of Rhode Island. Still kind of am when I watch them a little bit here and there. But the fact of the matter is, Providence College, Villanova, Georgetown, Seton Hall, Boston College, all of the great Catholic schools of the Northeast and Mid Atlantic are no longer Catholic. It's really hard. Notre Dame is another example. We talked about it at the top of the show when we were talking about college football. Notre Dame is a college, is a Catholic quote unquote college, yet it is not operating within those marks. There's always little bright spots and pockets. Usually some of the best clergy you'll find are on college campuses. Usually they dispatch the best priests they can to college campuses because it's a tough environment. So that's not true all the time. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying all the time, but you'll find the most charismatic. The Some of the best priests I've come in contact with have been ones that have been on college campuses. Yeah, the Jesuits. What's another one? What's the one? Creighton. That's another Jesuit college. So it is what it is in that regard. Not a great representation. And the sad thing is that when parents, they're like, oh, she's going to Creighton. Oh, he's going to Seton Hall. Oh, he's going to St. John's. Oh, he's going to St. Joseph's or Providence. That's a good Catholic school. First weekend, the debauchery that kid goes through, it's not indicative of a Catholic college. That's all I'm saying there. But either way, the Catholic school argument aside, it is very good that the people in the college are okay, and it is yet another to support the Jesuits. It's another example of why gun-free zones are it's a loser mentality. It's a loser mentality to have because it does not render the campus safer. What it does is it coalesces a bunch of victims into one place. All right, so we talked about a couple seconds before about the visas and how effective immediately Marco Rubio all issuances of worker visas for commercial truck drivers. This is on the back of the story out of the AP. The Trump administration is reviewing all 55 million foreigners with U.S. visas for any violations. I think that number dropped everybody's jaw when it came out. They said, "Oh yeah, we're going to review all 55 million visas," and people went 55 million visas, like 55 million visas. I believe the population. Actually, I should have looked this up before. What is the highest populated? I think it's California, but I need to know the number. It should be it's California. California, the highest populated state in the union, has 39.66 million people. And you're telling me there's 55 million visas out here? Even if half of those are expired, which many people stay on, like, ironically enough, The people that are the worst offenders of expired visas are Canadians. Canadians are here all the time on expired visas and expired student visas, and they just stay. But even if half of the 55, you're looking at what, 24, 20, 25, no, it's 27, 27, 28 million people. There it is right there. Deport all of them. Deport all of them. Goodbye to all. There's no reason to issue visas. Oh, Rick, we have to for the best and the brightest. I'm done with the argument. You hit me with the best and the brightest argument, and all of a sudden, I've got Southeast Asian truck drivers making U-turns in the middle of a Florida highway because you told me we need the best and the brightest and all this other kind of stuff. But 50, I think people are chewing on the number 55 million. This guy, Rising Serpent. Let me see if I get this correctly. 50 million, minimum 50 million illegals. We don't know. That's just a number. 50 million illegals and 55 million legal foreigners. 30% of the population of these United States are foreigners. You know? And people are complaining about affordable housing, gas, groceries, and the rising costs of healthcare, cars, and home insurance. What a shock. What a shock that all of the housing is unaffordable, because we talked about it the other day, and we'll talk about it a little bit at the end of and towards the end of the show. There are homes, brand new apartment complexes, brand new housing for temporary refugee status groups like Ethiopians and all these other kinds. Then you got 55 million visa holders, and then you've got 50 some odd million illegal criminal alien trespassers in the country. Yeah, no wonder people can't find housing. And a lot of these houses are paid by NGOs or paid by the government and paid by other things. And it's absolutely mind-boggling that this stuff even exists. So Huffier says, if foreign nationals with U.S. visas, 55 million, were a country, they'd be the 27th largest population in the world. They'd be between Kenya and Myanmar. And that is just people that are not full-time Americans. So the Trump administration said Thursday it's reviewing more than 55 million who have a valid, let's put that in quotation marks, visas for any violations that could lead to deportations, marking growing crackdowns on foreigners who are permitted to be in these United States. I like how the AP always has to put that qualifier to, well, they're permitted to be here. Not if the visa is expired. Not if it's expired. We don't know if it's expired. Do they have a right to be here? If they don't live here, if they are not citizens of that state in this union, then they are not permitted to be here. In a written answer to a question from the press, the State Department said that U.S. visa holders, which can include tourists from many countries and college students, don't forget the college students. There was a lot of people here as college students sitting on expired visas, are subject to continuous vetting with an eye towards any indication they could be ineligible for permission to enter or stay in these United States. Such information be found, the visa will be revoked, and if the visa holder is in the United States, they would be the subject to deportation. They really all need to be deported, man. They all need to be. Honestly, most of them are probably not valid. And you have a State Department under Joe Biden that wanted as many of them here, so they just didn't pay attention to this stuff. And under Barack Obama, they were issued under those two, and it just continued to pile up. And now we're trying to fix this problem, and yet people are going to complain, and people are going to cry, and people are going to whine that this is happening. Oh, these people are permitted to be here. Yeah, for a certain amount of time, for a specific function. The visa is not to run around the fields of Nebraska and to sit and take food stamps in Missouri. No, it's for going to college or for working at a company or some stupid reason that we have to import 55 million people in here over the course of how many years? Over the course of how many years? We don't even know. We know we have an end number of 55 billion and 50 million illegal aliens. And it's absolutely draw. I keep wanting to say jaw dropping that this is a thing, that this is a problem, and that this is something that these United States have to deal with. No other country on God's green earth has to deal with this problem. They just don't. They just don't, because they enforce their borders. Now, of course, Western Europe doesn't really enforce it to like people from Africa, but everybody else, they enforce it pretty well with that. So I I'm just gonna say this. They're probably gonna I'm gonna say right now, they'll probably find half of them. They'll probably say half of them are not here for a legit reason. And if that's the case, you're getting 25 million gotta go. Where are they gonna go? I don't care. If they're here on expired visas or if they're in violation of their visa, they need to go. How many of those do you think, how many of those visas do you think are for truck drivers? Right? How many of them are for truck drivers or other industries that they have come in and taken jobs from Americans? It's interesting to think. But I know some people won't agree, but I think that's a good Trump. I think it's a good Trump, and I think it needs to be looked over and it needs to be examined. And we need to get these deportation numbers up. We absolutely do. And they need to go. It's that simple. All right, this is RickCast. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you like what we're doing here. A small but mighty crowd here tonight, but it's Thursday. Thursdays are a tough night. Everybody streams on Thursday. It is the night to actually like put a live stream up. Some people only do one show a week. They do it on Thursdays because that's the night everybody watches. So I want to thank you for hanging out with me on this Thursday evening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next story of the night. From thefederalist.com, Gavin Newsom's desperate meme act will definitely save Democrats. Now, it's been very interesting lately to see an AstroTurf campaign to try and make Gavin Newsom a thing. And he is the defined definite winner of the Texas House redistricting. Nobody in the Texas House has enough political skill. Gene Wu is supposed to be the best one. Woo woo, and Gene Woo Woo can't capitalize on the moment. Everybody thinks he's a joke because he is. Jasmine Crockett, she doesn't have a seat anymore. So long, darling. It's going to be really tough to hear you crying on MS Now because that's the only place that'll take you, as you desperately beg Gavin Newsom to make you his running mate in 2028. But the fact of the matter is this. Gavin Newsom seized on the moment, and we talked about this all the way back when he started his podcast. I was the first to say he's running for president and he's trying to reshape his image. He's trying to run for president and he's trying to reshape his image by looking as a moderate who talks to conservatives and tackles the tough issues. And he went on the Sean Ryan show and he's making all these statements about Texas and how he's going to redistrict California with a reformation I think it's a reformation, right? You put a vote on the ballot to do so. And yeah, after this, he has been astroturfed into, oh, this is the guy. This is the guy. You're starting to see people on X and TikTok and Instagram making reels about Gavin Newsom saying, you know, he hates Trump so much. We all have to gather around him because he's the guy, which is funny because when you run females in potentially, you run two women for the office of the presidency in 3 election cycles, and the 2 women get the doors blown off of them. You can't run another woman. Whether you think I'm a misogynist or not, it's been proven twice that the American people are not ready for a woman. And the simple fact is, until you have a woman that acts feminine and not trying to do like Carrie Lake. I go after Carrie Lake all the time because she does a bad Trump impression. Nobody wants to listen to a woman like Carrie Lake act like Donald Trump. Nobody wants to listen to Hillary Clinton stomp around in a pantsuit and nag you. Now, I don't like the idea, but somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard has the grace and the demeanor to run a good presidential campaign. You're going to need a woman that's soft on the edges if she's going to win the election. Because most men, and I know because I got, accused of some pretty vile things today on X. Most men are not ready to vote for a woman. Whatever they say on X, when they get in the voting booth, they're not going to vote for a woman. If they act like Hillary Clinton, if they act like Kamala Harris, if they act like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if they act like Jasmine Crockett, they won't. I know most men would probably vote for a Tulsi Gabbard. Most men would probably vote for a Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I'm not trying to be like a Republican or a Democrat, because I'd tell you Carrie Lake would lose every election that she tries to do into it, because she's a terrible candidate. Nancy Mace is a terrible candidate, right? We go after Republicans just as hard, but the reason why it's such a contrast between men and women is because on the Democratic side, they want their female candidates to act like men. They want them to act like men and shed all feminine qualities, because those are bad. And when it comes down to it, yeah, you're going to appeal to the progressives and the liberals, but your moderates and any Republicans you're trying to pick off are not going to react well to it. They didn't even, like I keep saying, they don't react well to Carrie Lake, because they don't, the moderates and your country club Republicans don't like her. Even that girl that, I don't know, whatever her name is, she ran for the Secretary of State in Missouri. Now she's running for a House seat here. She's like some crazy Colombian Latina girl. She just kind of she's loud, she's obnoxious, and everybody's like, can you just leave my state? Can you go somewhere else? And so it's very interesting that the female candidate is going to take a back seat. Probably going to put one in at the VP spot, maybe a Crockett, maybe an AOC, maybe another female politician like a Hateful Kate or something like that. But Gavin Newsom, the runway is being cleared for Gavin Newsom. 2 reasons. He's a handsome man, and most people don't pay attention to politics. When he rolls through your town, he's a handsome man with a slick smile, and he's got the talking points down. I said this before. If Gavin Newsom runs, he's going to be a real threat, because he can play the part. And your average female, and your average male, like, in Nebraska, what do I call them? Football Frank and soccer mom Sarah, who don't pay attention to politics except every 2 and 4 years. Gavin Newsom's going to roll in, and he's going to smile, and he's going to shake their hand, and he's going to listen to them. And people are going to go, oh, I like that Gavin Newsom. He's really likable. And you know what? All he has to be is likable. And people will say, oh, well, California burned and people left. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about these things. So let's take a look. MAGA better run and hide. Democratic California Governor Gavin Newsom is mocking Trump on the internet. And the big thing is, it's just setting the table. All we're doing right now is setting the table for 2028. That's it. So he is doing this meme game. He is doing this meme stuff to just let the people, your internet, your people who do the promotion of Democratic policies and stuff, to let them know that he's the serious contender, that he can actually use that ground game that Kamala Harris was not able to get, and Hillary Clinton was not able to get. And let's be real, Joe Biden, yeah, that's right, Michael. He does. He's got the Justin Trudeau effect. He'll get all the unhappy women to vote for him. Correct. Because he's a handsome enough and he's slick enough to be able to convince people to vote for him. And the third part, which I keep forgetting, he's got the Pelosi machine. He's a cousin of Nancy Pelosi. He's related to Nancy Pelosi somehow. So he's got the Pelosi machine behind him, which is a huge deal. That's a real narrative for the Democrats and the dying news media are trying to push this week, and another naked attempt at giving the corpse of the political party some semblance of life. Gavin Newsom, CNN, Gavin Newsom is owning MAGA. Politico, Newsom is not only getting on Republicans' nerves, but potentially redefining how Democrats function. Newsom goes on the offense with Trump mockery. Newsom's Trump act wins raves from the Democrats. Thank you. He's the nephew. So he's related to Pelosi. That's a huge thing right there. Lou, Trump's not going to have to roast him because he's not going to run against him. I'm talking about like when it actually comes time to run. Yeah, Trump will take pot shots. You're correct, 100% correct. He'll take pot shots at him from the Oval Office, but that doesn't really. It's not going to affect the base. It could actually have the opposite effect. The more that Trump targets his anger at Newsom and targets his fire at Newsom, the stronger of a candidate he appears to the Democratic Party, because he's the one that's challenging and fighting Trump, because that's the only thing you need to have. In case you haven't been assaulted by Newsom's social media activity yet late, the gist of what he's recently done in very original form of humor, where Democrats imitate the way president talks and tweets, including excessive superlatives, idiosyncratic punctuation, chitsy graphics and videos, and per usual, contrary to media's applause, it falls flat because Newsom and his legion of unattractive women supporters are incapable of understanding what makes Trump's communication methods compelling. And here's the thing. They're not trying to win now. All they're trying to do, they've got 2 years to fine-tune this. Think of this as spring training for Gavin Newsom. This is spring training for Gavin Newsom and his team. They're refining their game. They have all of 2025 and halfway through whenever in 2026, whenever they decide to actually announce. So that's the problem that the Republicans, once again, are not understanding. Oh, Trump's doing so great against Trump's not running against him. And the fact that Gavin Newsom, even if it is window dressing, is quote unquote challenging Trump, that's what these people want to see. And the real problem is to ignore Newsom, is to brush off Newsom. Now, we talked last night, if Elon Musk and JD Vance join forces, that's going to be really hard. That's going to be a lot of money and a lot of technocracy between him, Peter Thiel, and JD Vance to get around. But Newsom's got the appeal to do it. If I'm looking at this from an objective point of view, I believe that Newsom does have the ability, if he just talks slick enough, to be able to convince the people that voted for Trump to come back. I do. I think he can gather momentum. And the worst thing you can do in politics, which is what they did to Trump. Remember, they did it to Trump in 2016. They ignored him. They made fun of him. They doubted him. And he was able to build that community. He was able to build that grassroots up in order to push it. So I wouldn't get too, I wouldn't be so dismissive of him. Lou, he's absolutely greasy. He's like Pat Riley from the 1980s. He's got that old 80s throwback look. He does look like a used car salesman. And you know what? A lot of politicians look like used car salesmen because a lot of them are used car salesmen. But what's the problem with used car salesmen? They're usually really good at their job. If we notice, used car salesmen, why? Because if you look at a used car salesman versus a new car salesman, usually when you walk onto a new car lot, the cars are shiny, they're brand new, they got the new car smell. They practically sell themselves. They just hammer out the interest and the payments and the things like that. You test drive it around the block and everybody thinks it's great. The used car salesman, that used car salesman's got to convince you why this 1999 Ford F-150 with 150,000 miles is the car for you at 28 months with 5% interest, right? Or whatever the case may be. The used car salesman is the better car salesman out of the two. So be careful. There's a phrase in the gun community, beware of the one gun man, because that guy has one gun and he's practiced thousands of rounds through it. So he's very good with it. Beware of the used car salesman, because the used car salesman can pretty much sell ice in a snowstorm to Eskimos. Whereas a new car salesman, No, they're fine. They're okay. They're very good, but their job is not as difficult, I would say, as a used car. Because new cars, like I said, people go in, they're in trance. Oh, I want this is a pretty car, blah, 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 blah. People on the used car lot are looking for a deal. They're looking for a deal. They're looking for a cheap car. They're just looking for cars from A to B. So it's just all I'm saying is you are right, Peter. He does look like a used car salesman. Used car salesmen are really good. They're really good. And they know how to get the job done. And that's the thing. This whole article kind of makes fun of the fact that Newsom's meme game is weak. And it is a cop out by the Democrats that Trump's style is the appropriate style in 2025 politics. The jokey, meme worthy, doesn't have to be pristine, but it has to be firm and tough and non-apologetic and standing for your party and your system. And that's what Gavin Newsom is fine-tuning, as Peter says, in this preseason football. If he makes a mistake now, nobody's going to care in a year and a half. If he puts out a bad meme right now, nobody's going to care. There was a meme out, or there was a picture was like, look at, maybe we can find it. Maybe we can find it. Let's see if we can find this one. X.com. I do hate X.com. I think the platform is just, JD Vance. Let's see if we can find this real quick. This one was put out here. Gavin Newsom versus JD Vance in high school, right? They're testing out to see, they're doing market research right now. And this one's not landing the way they thought because Gavin Newsom looks like the spoiled rich kid. And JD Vance looks like the nerd that'll help you get your Xbox fixed at 11:30 at night so you guys can continue to play, Halo 3 and munch on Little Caesars. So they're throwing this stuff out now, this young Putin. All of these guys are out here trying to test out which one of these. Here's another one. JD Vance versus Chad versus the Chad Vance versus Chad Newsom versus the Chud Vance. And so they're trying to test which ones work. They're trying to test which ones will land. And they've got their progressive YouTubers and they've got these people out here fishing and doing all this stuff to see which one will land and which one won't. And so that's what he looks like a preppy Yeah, he looks like he's looked like the kid that'll, beat you up and take your lunch money. But they'd rather do it now and take the feedback and say, okay, this one didn't work. This one, we looked too preppy and we didn't land. Okay, the Chad meme doesn't work for us because, this one does. All right, we got to figure out something else. If they're smart enough, and I think there's enough people in the social media on that sphere with a couple of years to prep it and a couple of years to work on it, I think they can make it out to be something where it would be similarly as vaulted as the Trump machine. That's right, G Money. That's why I'm saying people are making fun of his meme game right now. But if, in the middle of 2026 next year, they start hitting on it, it's going to be a whole different race. And we do know one thing about the internet is it's a paradox. The internet is forever and it remembers forever and it forgets in an instant. Words and phrases and things and accusations can live on the internet forever and they can also disappear depending on what the topic is and what the things are going on. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Gavin Newsom and his team look for it. Lou, I understand. I'm with you. Gavin Newsom is a terrible person, but he's got movie star looks and he's a slick talker when he goes through those towns that don't pay attention to politics. They don't know that California burned. And they'll say, hey, you let California burn. He'll be like, that was a failure on my part, but it really was Karen Bass and the mayoral system. They were the ones that let things down. I was in a support role for them. I did what I could. Politicians are politicians by trade, but not by accident. It's a finely honed craft. And I think Gavin Newsom would be terrible. But I'm also not going to say he has no shot. I'm also not going to discount him because the liberals discounted Trump, and we saw what happened after that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is RickCast. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Looks like the wrenches are in and they are doing their job. If you want to join them, if you want to be a wrench in the toolbox, all you got to do is ask for a wrench. I'll be more than happy to. I am generous with the wrenches. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen. Nice, G Money. Celebrating not crashing expensive equipment. That's what I'm talking about, man. Yeah, it really does. You are right on that. You are 100% right on this. The internet, you can make accusations and you can make slanderous statements on the internet to anybody and they can disappear, but they can also, the crazy thing is they can also be used against you. Right? If you're in a self-defense incident and you post something 4 years ago, if a DA finds it, they'll drag it up and use it against you. So you got to be careful when people make accusations, when people make statements. The internet is forever, but it does forget, depending on your situation and who you are. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to our final story of the night. Like I said, I got news from the Pew in a little under an hour, so we're going to make this quick. Try not to choke, because that's all I do now. When I drink water, I just choke on everything. So I'm getting old. It's fine. Americans can only afford 28% of homes on the market. Remember, we talked about this earlier in the week, where renters are saying 4+ years, and we have more economic data that is not great. Only 28% of homes currently for sale across the country are affordable to the typical U.S. household, according to a new report showing that home ownership continues to move further out of reach for Americans, even as the market supposedly slows down. August 2025 buying power report from Realtor.com shows that as a maximum affordable home price for the median income household in the U.S. has fallen to $298,000, just a little over a quarter of all homes on the market are priced within reach of a typical U.S. household. Now, of course, the problem with this idea of affordable houses is they're usually tiny homes, 1 bedroom, 500 square feet, crazy. They're practically sheds. And 2, they're not in the metro areas where people want to live, where the jobs are. So we have these problems that are there. This is all anecdotal. I was reading it on X, and one guy was like, hey man, the American dream is out of reach, and my dad told me to move to Arkansas because the housing's more affordable. And I don't want to move to Arkansas. The guy kept saying, I don't want to move to Arkansas because my social circle's there, my job's here, blah, 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 blah. And boomers just want me to move around. I'm like, well, I get what the boomer's saying. I left Rhode Island to get a different job, but many people don't want to leave their home, and I get that. Back in 2019, before the pandemic home buying frenzy, the maximum affordable home price for a medium income household was $30,000 higher at $325,000. Yeah, that's also kind of that's a little bit of that's a little unfair to say that way, because inflation wasn't as high at that point. Inflation was a lot, it wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. The buying power report puts very tangible dollar value on the impact of today's higher mortgage rates on housing affordability. Why are Americans struggling to afford? While buying a home has always been one of the biggest expenses an individual or family could face, the cost of buying a home and maintaining it has shot up over the past 5 years. It's funny, after the pandemic, housing has become more unaffordable. Historically low mortgage rates during the pandemic, which the worst offenders of that were people from California. People from California were selling their homes for cash, taking that money, going to Arizona, going to Texas, paying the inflated value of the house in cash, and raising everybody else's property rates along with it. Combined with a new focus on domestic space, the rise of remote work, which is not, there really isn't a rise of remote work, because the fallacy of remote work was most of the federal government was the ones doing the remote work. Your remote work that you have today is you work for like U-Haul part-time answering customer service questions for maybe $18 an hour. That is not sustainable to own a home. Right? There are very few remote jobs that pay over 40,000 a year, unless it's a government job or unless it's one of these high-tech California jobs where, you're an engineer or, C++ and all this other stuff. It's very limited. So they kind of throw this, well, the rise of home workers. Yeah, most people were working at home for maybe 2 years because of the pandemic. That was not the norm. People tried to make it the norm, but it's not the norm. People have returned to the office. And the emphasis on improving one's work-life balance led to an explosion in home buying activity across the country. This boom clashed with the general lack of inventory across the US, mainly due to the fact that developers had chronically underbuilt compared to demand in the few years following the subprime mortgage crisis, which is what you want to do. You don't want to have more houses because with the subprime mortgage crisis, people were getting houses that could not afford them, which is crazy enough because we're now back in the same thing. Prices have skyrocketed amid high demand, but buyers fought each other in bidding wars to snatch limited inventory available. Remember the stories of people that you had here in Texas for a time, in this area where I live, you had to pay money to reserve a spot to see the home. And even if you paid that money, that wouldn't guarantee that the home would be there. People would just come in and buy houses without seeing them. Oh, I bought the house sight unseen, and now I have to put money into it. Well, yeah, because you didn't look at the house. Well, I mean, Michael, I'm, telling me what, sharing what you've shared with the class during the course of this show. You have the skill set that is allowable to let you work remotely and be able to afford it. A lot of people don't have the necessary skill set to do it, or they don't want to take the certifications to get it. They just want to be like, I want to work at a call center. And I want to work for Apple remotely and make $18 an hour and work 35 hours a week. It's like, all right, well, you can do that, but you're not getting a house with that. And yes, Peter, you're right. The illegal immigrants, the people on visas, all of that skews the data as well. Things got a lot worse for home buyers after mortgage rates shot through the roof in 2022 following the Federal Reserve's aggressive rate hiking campaign. Oh, I know, Steph. It's funny when you go on Zillow or something like that. And I'm not going to lie, I still look at houses in New Hampshire under the weird belief that one day my wife is going to be like, yeah, let's move up there, even though we're both on the other side of 40 and our joints would not be able to handle a New England winter. But I still look at them because I always like looking at New Hampshire homes, and just the value of the homes up there are crazy compared to down here or different parts and all these other places. You're right. Depending on where you live, it is nuts where the parts of the country that prices go up versus down. You think a place, oh, that can't be that expensive, and then type it in and you go, oh my gosh, that is crazy. It's some place in West Virginia or a small town in Pennsylvania, and you're going, you guys want $350,000 for a 2-bedroom house? But Peter, yeah, I think I already said this, but the demand went up because people who didn't live here legally or were on expired visas were getting houses. The supply did go bad because it was gobbled up by people who don't live, or people who are not full-time members of the union. How are buyers reacting? According to Realtor.com, buyers of housing affordability struggles are reshaping their behavior. They're dialing up competition for the few affordable homes available on the market, renting for longer, as we talked about earlier in the week, 4+ years than they would, especially is the case for younger first-time home buyers, including millennials and Gen Z. Well, the average first-time home buyer is closer to 70 than 30. I know, Steph. I mean, I just threw out a number, but I'm sure it's the Seattle. By the way, Steph, I give you a hard time, but the Pacific Northwest is gorgeous. If the landscape up there is second to none. I can see why the people who are born there don't leave, because it's absolutely breathtaking. But I'm not doubting for a second that a small house is like 550, and you're going, how does somebody afford this house for 550? You don't. That's the problem. BlackRock, Vanguard, they can, and they do it. Changing buyers' behavior also affects sellers, especially as dwindling demand leads up to a pileup of investing in the U.S. market. As of July, there were 1.9 million homes for sale in this union. The problem is, what do people want? We have a secondary problem because the people who did buy the houses during COVID, during the pandemic, they overbought, and now they can't sell it for anything less than they bought it, or else they'd be underwater. So now you have a problem that you had back in 2008. You had a problem back in 2008 where houses in Arizona were going for, people will buy their house for 250, 300,000, like a simple house. And then when at the apex of the housing crisis, I knew a guy that sold a house in Arizona for $1 million. It was not worth $1 million. He gave the guys the keys and said, "See ya." A couple months later, they went, "Hey, we're underwater on this loan." He goes, "I don't know what you tell me. I don't know what you want me to do. You bought the house for $1 million. And there it is." So you have a lot of homes. They say 1.9 million homes are for sale. I want to know how many of those homes that are for sale the mortgages are potentially underwater. That's interesting. That's a question. How many of those people are trying to get out from under the loans that they bought during the pandemic that they no longer can afford? Oh, I bought this house, and I look at my house sometimes, what I paid for it back in 2019 versus today, and I go, that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't even know if I don't think I could sell this house in good conscience for that price. Of course, the thinking is you should sell it for that price because you won't be able to afford another home unless you buy it at that price. But it is a sick circle that we are in right now. Yeah, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going, Steph. We talked about it earlier in the week when we were talking about the fact that renters are staying 4+ years because they can't afford homes. And the only solution to that is some kind of housing crash. And of course, people like me have been predicting a housing crash for like 10 years, but it's eventually going to have to happen. There's only so much money they can pump into the market, the interest rates and all these other things. The market cannot be held up as long as people think, and it's just not going to work. The prices have to come down. But how do the prices come down when people are underwater in the mortgages? It's a bad setup that people are looking at. So, in the near future, restoring lost buying power will likely depend on a combination of modestly lowering mortgage rates, stronger wage growth, and most crucially, a boost in housing supply, particularly in the affordable segments. You know what? Who said it? If you deport 25 million visa holders that are not supposed to be here, all of a sudden the market improves. And I think that's why you have a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, saying we need mass deportations because these people are here. They're taking homes from people who live here. They're taking job opportunities. They feel like those who are not from here and are not here legally are getting a leg up on people that want the American dream. Right or wrong, however you look at it, I tend to agree with them in that regard. But the fact is, you get rid of 25 million visa holders, your housing supply opens up and there's more competition for it. But this is yet another, twice in 1 week we talked about housing and how younger generations feel priced out of it and how younger generations feel they're being left behind. And that's why when you go, how can younger generations support Trump and the Republicans and blah blah blah, because they feel even if the language isn't what they like, technically they feel like he's speaking for them. Whether you agree with it or not, that's what they feel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it, because in about 40 minutes, I'm going to start News from the Pew with the one and only Steve Cunningham. So we're going to cut the show a little bit short. I still gave you, you heathens. I still gave you wrenches, because you are my wrenches. I still gave you wrenches 50 minutes of my time. Glorious time indeed. All right, guys, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell to keep the show, help the show grow. We had a great night. I had like 350 people on. If you look at the views on YouTube today, that last night's episode had 350 views, which I know is nothing to a lot of people, but it's huge for this channel. So keep spreading the show around, spread it to different social media platforms, Facebook, other places, help the show grow. You guys are the key to the organic traffic growth on X. Anywhere you have a social media presence, if you take the link and you spread it out, that's going to be a huge help. But if not, if I don't see you in 40 minutes for News from the Pew, I will see you tomorrow here on RickCast. I will talk to you guys later, either in 40 minutes or tomorrow. God bless. And until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor. Hit the button.